What's up, my dudes? So let's talk about PUBG Night Map. Now, I know a lot of you guys probably thought about this idea. You've probably envisioned this in your mind at some point, like, oh, wouldn't that be sick to have a night map on PUBG? I even think it was actually answered in a recent interview with the PUBG, I don't know what he is, developer, co-developer, manager, I don't know what the hell he is, but he answered that. He said that would be really cool to have that. They have been talking about that, and maybe at some point they can have that, but I really wanted to go in here and kind of expand the thought process on it and kind of talk about everything that could potentially be in a kind of like a night map. And some people will kind of make the statement of, well, you could just make the maps that are already in there have a night version to them. And even though I do think that is a bit of a cool idea, at the same time, personally, I'd rather see just a brand new map that was just strictly dedicated to nighttime, because I don't know, like, I mean, it's kind of like yeah, it would be cool to have a night, like the current desert map night version, but it seems like it wouldn't be as fun having that as it would be like just a brand new map, night map. But it goes into talking about, you know, you got thermal scopes, you got lights on the map, you know, a lot of different stuff that you could potentially have there. So when you start talking about how would the map be designed, you know, how dark would it actually be, how easily would it be to be able to actually see enemies in the distance? I personally think it should be a map to where there is a certain amount of moonlight going on. You know, I don't think it would be right to have it totally pitch black where you couldn't see anything out in the distance. I think that would be going a little bit extreme there. I just think it should be dark to the point to where, like, maybe it's just a little bit harder to see people that are kind of past that you know, like 100-foot range or something like that, somewhere around there. Like, you know, out in the distance in the trees, just a little bit harder to pick people out, kind of figure out where they are. But I don't want it to be so dark to where it's like you literally can't see them. I think that would definitely be a little bit overkill in that sense. But, and I think there should be, like, in the city areas and the town areas, obviously have lights going on and spotlights that, like, randomly shine out in different areas on the map and stuff like that. I think that would be really cool to have that. I don't know, man. I mean, I feel like if they got it too dark, it would make it to where it would be more annoying than fun. And I'm sure a lot of you guys can vouch for that. Like, if it's so dark that you can't even see people in the trees at all, it would be kind of like, what's the point? I don't know. You know, I could just imagine the frustration of random fucking brrr out of the trees on you constantly, like, dying from nowhere. I wouldn't like that. But then it comes into the thought of, like, flashlight attachments, and, you know, that would become a big thing, and really being able to spot people. I want them to find a nice balance between where it's like you can still barely see them, but it's hard to see them, and there's actually a really big use for flashlights and staying out of the lights in the town and doing that. And I think there should be kind of where, like, where there's tree coverage, it should be darker, you know, it's kind of blocking you from the moonlight. So if you can get in and amongst the trees, it's kind of going to give you a little bit more concealment, especially if you're not moving, right? I think that would be a really cool thing to have. And certain stuff like that, you know, make it to where it's not just like a constant lighting effect over the entire map. You want to make it to where certain areas are darker, certain areas are more lit up just strictly from the moonlight, and then you got certain areas that are, like, in the cities, you know, super lit up, right? And stuff like that. Make it to where maybe you could shoot out the lights in a building and like make it dark. I could just see the cool gameplay elements that might create, in a sense where it's like, you know, you got something really cool where you got two dudes in a building and they're about to run in there and kill you, and you shoot the lights out and they can't see where you're at. Now, in a building, I think that should be pitch black. Let's say you shoot the lights out, or there just happens to be certain, like, raggedy shack buildings that don't have any lights in them to begin with. I think those should be pitch black, right? The only thing that's actually creating natural light is the moonlight coming off of out of the sky, and then obviously the lights coming from the cities. But other than that, it's pitch black, right? So if you're under any sort of roof system or in a building or whatever, that should be basically where it's like you're almost playing a horror game, right? And it is pitch black. I think that would be really cool, you know, to kind of have a dynamic of it all, where it's like there's certain spots on the map that are super pitch black, some of them that aren't as pitch black, but I think just as a whole, the moonlight itself should give somewhat of a standard amount of light just in general. Even if you're not right in a city, there should be some there. It shouldn't just feel like you don't even know where you're walking if you don't have a flashlight because you can't see it all. I mean, I think you should be able to see to a certain extent, but that's going to take a lot of time to really figure out that balance of lighting. You know, it's going to be quite difficult to really learn that, but I don't think a dark map is going to be their next one. I really think their next one is going to be kind of like a snow vibe map, so it's probably going to be quite the amount of time until we ever actually see this, which I don't understand why the PUBG companies don't start hiring more people and getting more content out quicker. Like, what on earth, man? The amount of money they're making, I just can't believe they're not coming out with maps like every few months, you know, every couple of months. Like, what? I don't get it. Like, why is it not more frequent content? Makes no sense. But either way, yeah, and then you start talking about thermals. Now, I know when anybody hears thermals, heat-seeking anything, people are like, oh, fuck that shit. That's that shit I don't like, right? A lot of people hate that stuff. They hated it when it came out in the Call of Duty series, basically just because it's like you don't even have to think about where people are. It just shows you where they are. But I think they could do it in a way to where I think it should be an only night map thing. I don't think you should be able to get thermals on the normal maps. I really don't feel like you should be able to do that. It should be a night map only thing, and I think they should make it to where it's not just super crystal clear, right? It's kind of got like a bit of a haze to the way the thermal scope works, like a super realistic thermal scope, to where it's almost like you can see them lit up a little bit, but not like a lot, and maybe the gunfire lights up, and if someone throws a Molotov, it lights up, but it's got to have a bit of a blending in with the background to a certain extent. You don't want it to just be like they're lit up like a Christmas tree, like super obvious, but you want it to be where they are lit up some. Like, if they're just wide out in the open standing on a road and you zoom in on them with the thermal scope, then yeah, it should be like a Christmas tree. But if they're like down in the grass and behind foliage and trees and all that kind of stuff, it shouldn't be that clear. So it should kind of add a bit of a balancing effect in that type of sense, where you got kind of a, you know, it's not like crystal clear, kind of like it was in some of the Call of Duty games. I think that is not how PUBG should be, but I do think there should be thermals in the game. Maybe that could be a box drop, pretty rare box drop. I don't think that should just be a ground drop. Now, flashlight should be just kind of out and about. Flashlight attachments, and maybe you've just got like a flashlight. Do they even have actual lasers in PUBG? I don't think they do. You know, like the little laser attachments that can attach to it. I think that would be kind of cool if they added that in there just for the heck of it. I don't know. that would be interesting. And maybe if you added the laser attachment to it, maybe it helped the you know, the no scoping. I don't know, maybe the no scoping, you know, cone that it shoots, possibly. That'd be kind of cool if it actually gave a bit of a gun mechanic advancement help to it, you know, statistically helping the gun as an attachment in that type of sense, versus just strictly being visually. But even if it is just strictly visually, that'd still be cool. But yeah, man, either way, I mean, I think the flashlights, it's going to be so much fun, like, you know, being able to, like, thinking about, you know, you being with either by yourself or with a squad, you're just off in the woods, and like it's pretty dark around, there's not any towns super close to you, and you're out there with your flashlights, and it's like, okay, do we turn our flashlights off so that they can't see us, or do we keep them on so that we can see other people better? Like, what do we do, right? So it's that kind of dynamic of, like, if you start getting shot at from far away, you don't know where it's coming from, then you shut off your flashlights, and it's like, then you run behind a tree, and then these other dudes don't have their flashlights on either, then they run right up behind you and stab you in the neck. You know, that kind of fun, I can just imagine the gameplay elements that would create having that, but they have to absolutely nail the lighting effect where it's not too dark, but it's dark enough, you know, and that's one of those, I just don't know if they can do that. I don't know if they can really capture that fun effect to it. And I think as far as the way the city should be laid out with the nighttime PUBG map, I don't think there should be nowhere near as many cities. I think the shacks, kind of like, you know, the medium-sized little town areas, maybe they should have like maybe way fewer amounts of lights on them. You know, maybe it's just like one street light on one of these little medium-sized town areas. The only places it should have like super big lights and spotlights randomly shining around out in the distance, you guys know what I'm talking about. That should only be on like maybe two of the main major cities on the map, but I think just in general they should have a little bit less cities and towns and buildings that you're used to on all the other PUBG maps. I think they should lower the amount of structures on it to where there's not quite as many lights going on. I want them to make it to where there is, you know, quite vast, whether it be forest or whatever it is, that is nighttime with no lights out there. You know, they need to have enough of that in there instead of just having like random cities and towns kind of plopped and peppered in an even dispersion on the entire map. I don't really want it to be like that. I mean, I do want there to be some towns and medium-sized towns and smaller shacks and stuff, but not, I'm just saying, not quite as much as you've come to know on most PUBG maps. So there's a lot of potential for it, man. It's going to be really fun to play on something like that, and it just be something where it's like, I could just see how much more replayability it would give the game. You know, going from like a daytime map to a night map. It's one thing when they come out with a new map that's just like a new biome or something, but to come out with a new map that has a whole different gameplay element to it and a whole different way that you play with the flashlights and the hiding system and all that, that would just be so cool, man. I'm telling you, that would bring so many people to this game, so many old school fans to the game to have an element like that. It'd just be so sick, dude. I just think that would be so cool to have something like that. And, you know, maybe they've got varying levels of flashlights. Like you could possibly pick up a flashlight attachment where it just barely shines at all in front of you. Like maybe there's a level 1, 2, 3 on it. And if you pick up a level 3 flashlight, like it's almost like a damn strobe light or something. You know, it's a super light. And maybe they come out with like a special grenade where you throw it and it like makes this huge sparkle. Maybe it's like a firework or something, so it throws off everybody else's thermal scopes and sounds like gunshots. That would be sick as fuck if they had some special grenade like that, where it's like basically a firecracker firework where it like blows up 100 little separate fireworks, sounds like gunshots, makes a bunch of light and noise and shit, so you can like create distractions like that. Oh my god, why don't they have something like that in there right now? Why is that not in there? I guess you can throw grenades, but it's not. You guys know the little firecrackers that I'm talking about, where it's like 100 of them in one long sheet, and you just kind of throw it out there and you light it once and it goes right, like it's popping all the fireworks. They need that in the game ASAP. But if it on top of that created a bunch of light and throwing off everybody's thermals and all that kind of stuff, that would be so cool to have that. But you could have like, you know, varying levels of even the thermal scope. You know, you could have the first level where it's not like, doesn't light them up quite as good, and then maybe the second level lights them up even better than the level 3 thermal scope. Like it really, really lights them up. You could have varying levels of that and stuff too, but yeah, it's going to be interesting to see when they do come out with something like that, if they ever do decide to really take it to that level. But there's just so much you could do with it, man. Like, I mean, I hope I've conveyed some of that to you in this video, but I really want to see something like that. I just want to see more maps in this game in general. I think this game will be so much better as far as wanting to come back and play it once they get to the point where they've got, you know, the original map, the desert map, the tropical jungle map, a snow map, and then a night map. If they got all 5 of those maps in the game, I'll feel like it's to the point where it's really going to start attracting a lot of people to it and coming out with more weapons, more special grenades like I'm talking about, more vehicles. I'm trying to think of some other cool stuff that they could have. Obviously, the lights on the vehicles, you know, the headlights and stuff will make a difference on how much you can see and running over people and stuff like that. Just trying to think about certain, like, obviously the whole flashlight attachment thing would be sick, but like also having something where it's like not only flashlight attachments, but just maybe there's like a pretty high spawn rate of just having flashlights that aren't on the gun at all. It's just a flashlight, like straight up. So the early on stages, like maybe you could have somebody that picks up a flashlight real quick after they land in a really popular city and that's all they have, and they just run up to you with a flashlight and you think it might be on a gun, but it's not. It's just a flashlight. So you could like throw people off like that and stuff. I think that'd be really cool if they could manage to do that. And maybe in the water, you know, you could shine your flashlight down the water. It'd be cool to see some like random, I don't know. And then you go even further where it's like the day, the time of the day. Like, you could have a map where it starts off at sunset, and then throughout playing through the match, it turns into nighttime, right? That would be interesting if they made a map like that, where it like went from daytime to nighttime just from the time you landed to the end of the match. That would be so cool. You know, there's just so much possibility and expandment that could possibly happen with that, but I just think it would be cool if they could just get a night map out, period, that was just night the whole time through it. If they can get that out, I'll be really happy. But yeah, man, definitely let me know down in the comments what you guys think about that, your own ideas for it. I would love to see that. I really would. I'm not just saying that to be like, oh, guys, put some more comments down on my video to help my video out like most YouTubers. I actually genuinely want to see that, and I will look at every single one of them. So either way, man, appreciate you guys watching all the videos. Later, dudes.